Hi guys. So today I wanted to talk about how even though I am not doing what I went to school for, which is acting and voiceover has a lot of traits. And it's interesting, like when you look back at your life, like what are the things that led you up to the moment of you figuring out, this is what I'm meant to be, this is my path. And you hear about different stories from other people who or like, this is what I went to school for, and then I totally changed my life, or because I met this person, or because they discovered, like, something that, because there's so many things that you are taught in school of jobs that, how do I say this? School does not prepare you for the real world, right? We all kind of know that already. And a lot of jobs that are kind of taught to us to aspire to, most people are not going to be doing that. And it's so weird to me how many different things are not like shown to us or taught to us. But I mean, I know the big reason is they want it to actually be as difficult as possible, have you spend and waste a bunch of money going to these certain schools just because you're doing what you thought you should be doing. And so many people are, they fall into the trap of academia, get good grades, stress themselves out, and then pay all this money in tuition for this college experience, and they're stuck paying down their student loans for the rest of their lives, unhappy with the career choice. And for some people, it's fine and it works out, and they did what what really is their calling, and they were able to figure that at a young age. But I think about all the people who end up at dead-end jobs because they don't have this connection with themselves to really see, like, what do they really like, what are they actually really good at, and just learning and understanding how much there really is out there in the world of different work you could be doing. And especially people in the arts, or where art is their true calling. And so many are this wonderful artist who is the grocery store manager or cashier or whatever. And it has been changing a lot, which is nice to see, and so many more people being inspired because of social media and having these doorways open up for them of being able to make money in other ways and actually pursue their art, and are able to do that because of their social media presence. But for me, I knew academia, I knew psychology, and then once I was in the in school, the clubs, they had anime club, and then I took Japanese for the last 2 years of high school. And that's where it kind of hit me, like, oh, like, screw all of this other stuff. I really love anime. I love the voices, and I've always had this knack for being able to really understand how sounds are made, pick up on a person's voice. I have very good memory for voices as well. So in the TV show, I can pick out, like, oh, I know who this actor is, even if they're doing a very like a very character type of voice, but I can always pick up on it. And so all of that really interested me and seemed really fun. So I was like, okay, let me go ahead and apply for college to do acting and voiceover, because the college I went to had a voiceover minor. And that was really nice, and it helped me develop skills to be more comfortable in front of people. And I learned a lot of health practices. So in acting, in acting school, the foundational courses in the beginning of class, you just do kind of like yoga and you stretch. Because of those classes, I got to understand different ways I could take care of my body, and then eventually taking voice classes, so understanding both how to take care of my voice and understanding how sound is made, and getting into dialects and accents, and getting an education on that was fun because I was pursuing something that I was interested in. And then being able to have fun in my voiceover classes, and it just kind of allowed me to actually pursue something that I thought was fun. I also got classes around audio editing, and so having all of those skill sets, so understanding a little bit when it comes to health and taking care of my body and my voice, and getting to understand how to be a better actor, and a lot of those things I was good at and interested in when it comes to understanding people and characters, which is why I was always interested in psychology. But if I would have pursued psychology and being a therapist, I would have been taught, the Western view of mental health. And all of this, besides, between mental health and physical health issues, it's all surrounded by labeling someone as having this as an identity, and then how can we prescribe them something, which I learned later on. So even though I wasn't fully cognizant of that when I was in my, as an older teenager, looking back now, I'm really glad that I didn't pursue that, because I wouldn't want to be a part of, the Matrix's version, their version of what, health is supposed to be and how it's supposed to be treated. And to me, the important part was always, if I understand people and I want to help people, and for that type of intelligence comes naturally to me, then that would be nice to be able to do. But because it was packaged in, okay, study psychology and whatever, become a licensed therapist, if that is the only way I can do it, then screw it, I'm not going to do that. I'd rather take that interest of understanding people and helping them through the story. I'm much more interested in that. And then it also, being in that kind of environment, acting helped with fear of being seen, any lingering feelings of being embarrassed or afraid to be silly. If I went to a regular academic institution, I'm not getting any of those social skills. I'm not accessing my creativity, or I'm still the shy person that I was. I would have just continued, because I would have been intimidated instead of learning how to be okay with being silly. And to the point where I feel like, for the most part, I am pretty introverted. But when people meet me, and also my rising is in Gemini, people assume I'm an extrovert, because I've learned how to access that fun and openness to want to connect and socialize and have fun, and not be worried about being seen as silly or goofy. And that also allows me to have so much more freedom, where I can be more authentically myself, because I'm not so afraid of being judged by being seen as weird. Now, I'm not like some other people that will fully just do all kinds of crazy stuff in public, and I still stay very quiet, respectful of other people. But it's more just if someone says I did this when there was a full moon, and I was out with my fiance, and I started howling because I like to do that. And even though I'm in public, there's not really many people, or there wasn't anyone around us, but we're technically outside in a public area. But it was clear enough where I could howl and feel comfortable, and it's fine doing it outside. So if someone were to hear me, it's not a big deal. But my fiance had such of this strong sense of that's embarrassing, I can't do that, I don't want to be looked at, even though there's no one around. And yet you see the difference between someone who hasn't had that opportunity to work on and explore what it feels like, kind of in situations, kind of forced to be silly, to act whatever, where it's encouraged and you're performing, to someone, right, that I got to have that experience and he didn't. And it makes me so grateful that I did just follow that spark of joy or that interest and passion to follow, okay, here's this academic side of me understanding and being very good at understanding people and wanting to help them. But those skills I had inherently and have since developed over time, where the same way a therapist can kind of see someone analyze the situation and take based off of what they're saying, their history, and being able to pinpoint, okay, this is what this person, quote unquote, has. This is what they need to do, and this is how I can help them. This is how they can work on stuff, whatever. I already have all of this knowledge just passively over the years of observing and learning and from other people that talk about psychology related stuff online and learning from that. But it's like with anyone, they have their own intelligences and their own natural ability to kind of like, oh, this I understand. It just kind of clicks and comes naturally for them. And that's how it was for me. But all these other aspects that when it's tied to being in tune with your body and your voice and not being afraid to be seen, I got to have that experience. And so no wonder, even though I'm not pursuing acting anymore, it was all necessary for now. And so I really wasn't even actually pursuing acting since I had graduated, or voiceover. Because despite what I did learn and what I was able to access, the not being so afraid and being able to be silly and goofy and be myself in front of people and having fun with that, I was still deeply like kind of scared and overwhelmed and not really sure like how to actually approach it, because again, acting is even though I learned it in school, it is so different and removed from having a regular quote unquote job. Unless you get lucky right away that someone sees you, you get an agent, and then you get booked in TV shows. Like, okay, my regular job, I've been on this series, thank God, for 9 seasons. Like, that's their job. They quote unquote clock in and clock out on this regular schedule. But for most people, it's going to be a constant trying to get noticed, audition, and refine those acting skills to hopefully get an agent, but then continue, to work on all this stuff to actually get jobs. And you never know when the next job is going to come and how much money you're going to make. And there's a lot of instability with that, which is why people are so encouraged. If you can think of anything else you might want to do or something else you might be better at, don't pursue it. And I took that and I thought, no, I do want to do this. But there were always like doubts in the back of my mind, and I didn't really follow the typical personality of someone that has all this drive and motivation to make it happen. And I don't believe in like discouraging people. I just think that it comes to a point where it's up to the individual to really sit with themselves and be honest of and it's true, right? Like, can you think of anything else you might be better at and you might enjoy doing more? Then you should probably be doing that. But acting is still an art, right? So even if it's not someone's career, just like with anything else, if someone wants to do it and learn something, they should be able to. When I finally started doing some stuff with acting, I discovered background acting. And the way I discovered background acting is because when we were living at our apartment, an Orange Theory had opened up. And I had joined Planet Fitness and that sucked. And then COVID happened, and then I wasn't at a gym, and then the Orange Theory opened up, and the receptionist there, he one day told me, he's like, oh, do you know, because we were talking, and then he found out that I was pursuing acting, and if I knew about background acting. And because of that, I was then able to look into it, and then discovered like how I could start getting paid to like be acting. So I did that for a couple years, and then stopped for a year because of the brand ambassador job I got, which is again after my cashier job had ended. So then it kind of put me in this position where I could think of, what do I actually want to do? And instead of looking at what job I wanted, I looked at what attributes do I want from the job. And that's how I started to manifest, that transition in different jobs. So I discovered, being a brand ambassador. And so then I was in control of when I scheduled myself, because then I could specifically apply to the jobs that I was free to do. And then I got in with, different companies to get more work. And then that allowed me to keep doing background acting, because a lot of demos were on the weekend and then background acting during the week. And then that turned into me wanting to get a car, and I finally learned how to drive. I never learned how to drive growing up. So I think I was like 28, I was like, okay, it's time, like I'm gonna learn how to drive. So then after a year of learning with my dad, then at the start of the next year, so like in January, February, then there was like, instead of me trying to do brand ambassador work for all these random companies, I could actually just be a part-time employee as this company's like demo person. And I had taken the bus for an hour to get there. And the guy that I interviewed with, very nice, great guy, he asked me if I knew how to drive and if I had a car. Well, to practice, I had been using my mom's, but it wasn't my car. I didn't have a car. But I told him, yes, I have a car. And he goes, okay, great, you're hired. And so then I borrowed my mom's car for a couple months in order to do this job, because you need to have all your materials with you to travel to different locations, different grocery stores, which turned into her giving me her car. So I was very blessed for that. But it all started because I was making these decisions to get healthy. So I go to the gym and discover background acting. Then background acting, how else can I make money while still being able to schedule myself how I want, and low stakes job, no oversight, and get paid more than minimum wage. And sure, at background acting, you're still technically being watched, but it's so independent, and for the most part, if you're a decent, normal adult who has respect, it's very easy. You show up on time, you bring stuff to do, you wait around, you get called on set, do what they ask you to do, and you get fed. It couldn't be any better. It's very simple. But then when I got the part-time brand ambassador, or part-time demo person, that eventually just took a lot out of me. And then I got a second job on top of that, which was the merchandising and demo job, which pays way, way more. So it was more consistent hours, getting paid way more. I still get to schedule myself. And then eventually realized last year, I can't keep up this other side demo job. They pay basically minimum wage, and it's exhausting. And so in order to have more time to focus on acting, I need to quit that job, focus on this main one, getting paid well, and then, okay, let me start pursuing voice acting, not just doing background work. After I tried sending my stuff to a bunch of different agents and not hearing anything back, I then made an account on ACX, which I've also talked about in my first video. But anyway, then the next day, got reached out to by this guy, was doing, I did 2-3 audiobooks over the course of almost a year, just to eventually find out that it was fake. And then had, also, overlapping with my spiritual awakening, going to a retreat in Peru. And then now I'm working with the girlfriend that I went to college with. And it's funny too, how much our stories parallel each other, and why I realized certain people who are meant to be in your life, and it's interesting seeing the purpose that they have. So this girl, Sydney, who also did acting, voiceover, but then also comedy, followed what she believed that she enjoyed the most, learned a lot of skills from that. And you can watch on her channel, she also has a video of the things that she learned from like improv and comedy. All right, Sydney Foltz at T Grossa, as well as her other username. But so anyway, it's like, again, this parallel kind of journey of, we followed this passion for acting, learned a lot of skills from it, and it's interesting, like the different ideas around acting and how that also translated to what she does as being like a spiritual entrepreneur and guide for people. And thank God, because if without her and me knowing her, it's like, oh, this is also why I went to college. Because there's going to be a girl where you're going to reconnect 8-10 years later, and she's going to continue to help you on your spiritual journey. She walked so that you could run. But yeah, kind of like paving the way. And there are just certain people that are the path pavers, or, you know, again, showing the way. She already experienced it and has this very strong calling, to the point where she's in Peru, has this very like strong spiritual gifts. So then now someone like me who knows, you know, on this journey of struggling and trying to figure out what's my purpose, what am I meant to be doing. And yes, I have also come to understand that purpose is also just being able to learn how to relax, enjoy life, and always be just following whatever is sparking that interest and joy within your heart, and learning to love yourself and love those around you and forgive. And then you, through that, you find what is your specific gifts, and then that tends to translate into how now in the way our society is built, as a means to make money. But the more you just tap into yourself, trust yourself, believe in yourself, know that you are inherently worthy and abundant, then that also kind of comes, not easily, but, you know, the more you can do all of those things, then the quote unquote easier it becomes. I struggled so much, and so now, because of her help in this connection and this parallel journey for my particular struggles, I was able to work on myself a lot independently before I reconnected with her, but now giving me this confidence of, oh, she's doing it. I've seen other expanders, and I'm getting ideas that this is possible for me too. Now, this idea that I had when I was younger of knowing that I was good at giving advice and all this other stuff, but because I didn't go to like a regular college and I went to acting or an art school, then both of those things combined kind of helped me on my journey to kind of solidify and create kind of like the personality and the characteristics that I have now, that all kind of come together so that I can then become my own like spiritual entrepreneur, create a spiritual business, and share content. And again, if I had gone to regular school, I wouldn't have learned how to, you know, edit and be comfortable with editing audio or videos. I mostly did audio, but again, it's easy enough and I have the ear for it to be able to go back and edit my videos. And then being able to have this presence online, even though yes, it did take me a long time to get comfortable and actually start for the first time this week, I don't see how that, you know, that would have been even more difficult for me if I never had the background of acting and voiceover and like getting comfortable with, again, being able to be okay in front of people, be myself. Also like understand that, and I had this kind of epiphany at the anime convention where I ended up for the first time volunteering in a fan-led panel where they just had the audience like come in to do different activities and stuff. And the activity that they had was like a talent show. and they had random things that they had pre-written out, and you just pick like a talent and then do it. And for example, it was like sing while gargling water, and I was like, well, first of all, I'm glad like I volunteered because I really wanted to participate and have fun. And again, as practicing that, like, I'm an actor, like I can do this. And so one of the ones that I picked up was gargling and being able to sing while gargling water. And it was in like tournament style, so like when I performed that versus the other person doing their thing, then I won. And then I had another round that was like yodeling on one leg, and I won that round. And actually the first one was playing air guitar, and I went so hard that my glasses fell down. But I was so focused on just doing my best and performing and being of service to the audience that I ended up like winning this little competition, even though, you know, it's all for fun. But it took a long time for me to get to that point, to be able to do that. And because, you know, improv and all like that kind of stuff is different than actually being in a play and you have your lines memorized and whatnot. But just being so in the moment of having fun, just going all out and doing it because I know that this is what's going to help the audience have a good time. And so again, you can translate this into what I'm doing now, is that I'm showing up fully as myself, and it's less of a performance and more just like putting myself out there and, you know, sharing my gifts to whatever extent that could mean. But the point is that I'm doing it with the interest of caring about the audience, of knowing that I am being of service to you guys, whoever may be watching, and, you know, want something to listen to or get inspiration from what I'm saying or can relate to my story. And that also then helps getting out of my head of I can't be seen or this is embarrassing, and realizing that I was given this gift. I'm confident in what I know. I'm confident in my voice. And now just all I have to do is hit record and do my best and share whatever it is that I want to share, and trust that it's going to then help. It's going to find the audience that it's meant to help. So yeah. So, and then again, last to reiterate about the, you know, psychology and whatnot. By combining all of this together, it gives me what comes naturally to me of like what I want to share and what topics that have been on my mind that I want to be able to talk about, either again to help inspire or to educate in some capacity. And then eventually part of what I'm doing here, of not just sharing myself and my voice and giving advice or whatever education in the video and inspiration, to then work with people one-on-one to then be able to see specifically what do they need, how can I inspire them, how can I then use those skills that I have naturally. So it's again not just content creation, making a video, but then that academia part of it, of specifically working one-on-one to then provide that specific help that that person needs. So yeah, it's all part of the process, but it is beautiful and interesting when I look back at these things I was always interested in. They were always gonna culminate and manifest into my quote-unquote career path. And then on the side, I can still act like I'm still gonna be doing background and stand-in work on, you know, the TV shows filming here, and I can still make voices and still use my voice. But I might have said in the previous video as well, but making personalized affirmations. So all of that knowledge that I learned from college and worked on in audiobooks can still be applied. It wasn't all for naught. And again, it's just, you know, you never regret whatever it is that you've done or been through, because there's a reason why I why you chose that path. If you followed what interested you, and you learned your lessons that you needed to learn along the way of the good and bad experiences, build up your character to work through, what issues that you worked through as you engaged with other people that reflected back to you what it is that you needed to learn. So yeah, so if you're at a place where you feel like you're not quite sure what you should be doing, or maybe you do know what you want but you feel like you can't, just take it step by step. And yes, it can be a long journey, and that's just how it is. Some people get a job right away, they know what they want to do. Some people find it later in life. Sometimes it changes, they pivot, and it's all a part of their journey. There's no one right way to do something. You kind of discover it as you go. The same thing of relationships. Some people, marry their childhood best friend. Some people get divorced, maybe more than once. Some people find, are single until they're 50 and then they find their soulmate. Again, it's like, as long as you can honor that your journey is yours and realize, release any guilt or shame about your past. Don't let it continue to affect you in the current moment, because at the end of the day, you can always be grateful for everything you've been through. And again, if you know you want to do things to change your life, you can do that. Step by step, little by little, write it down, visualize, think about what it is that you want to do, tune into yourself, and really think of what would make me happiest right now. What am I interested in? What am I good at? And again, because of social media, anyone doing anything can be successful, can make a business out of it. If it's a thing that matters to you the most, that you're good at, that you're interested in, it can happen. And that's, I'm also saying that for myself and reminding myself. And, let go of the expectations. I don't need to get views right away, because after I've made my 50th, 100th video, and then people are watching stuff back, then they can see this and be like, oh, wow, good job. You did it. If I would have stopped right now, I would never see what that 100th video would be like. Any improvements or followers or whatever, how much money I might be making. But I can't let, the quote-unquote lack of results that I see right now stop me. And it's like, sometimes when other things that you try to pursue don't work out, like with me in acting, I think because I cared so much about eventually figuring it out, I tried to do that for as long as I could and struggled with it until I got to the point where I could finally be ready to receive and understand what is actually meant for me, and being able to accept myself of, I am good at this. Yes, it is possible. And sometimes that comes through trial and error until you eventually can be not just honest with yourself, but ready to accept what it is that you're good at, not being afraid of success. And then once you can fully accept it, you're no longer really sabotaging yourself, because you can wholeheartedly believe in yourself that, yeah, there's nothing else I could or should be doing. This is it. And yeah, everything will be okay, guys. Little by little. Hope you found this interesting. I'll keep at it, keep making videos, and but I just wanted to share how this was all kind of connected for me and made sense of my interests, what I was good at, and what I went to school for, what I got out of school, and how it all kind of culminates into making sense for once we got into this new reality of what's possible for people, social media, things that didn't exist when I was growing up. But it's okay to know that things can change, and that you don't need to have it all figured out when you're 18 or 25 or whatever, because a new job or new thing might just pop up that kind of clicks for you, and you're like, oh my God, that thing. But everything you had been learning up until that point, as long as you kept following, hopefully what you're interested in, and even if not, don't fret. Eventually it'll come. if you're focused on having this eventual desire, because I always said, I'm not giving up on acting. I'm working on myself and eventually I'll figure it out. And then it kind of did happen. But it's because I always had that desire in my heart of like, I know I'm meant for more. I want to do this thing that I'm passionate about that's going to make my life feel way more fulfilling. And even if I'm not doing it with that always at the forefront, little by little, things were manifested and tweaked until we got here. So yes, have a great day, guys. Love you.